Welcome everyone to the Renew You podcast.
Episode.
I don't know. Took 2 weeks off because I was in California, then you were in California.
Well, we took 3 weeks off. The week before that, we were
and then
on
we
vacation.
were in Florida. Yeah, that's true. No, I thought we recorded ahead of time and Clark uploaded the week we went to Florida, right? Yeah.
Oh, so 2 weeks.
Yeah, but if you notice something different,
it's because
the comfort room is now a makeshift Renew You studio. But it's nice. We won't have to set up every week and tear down every week. And now we just pray that the Rodecaster Video Pro doesn't distort all of our footage. And if that happens, then we're in business, baby, as the people say.
Great.
So I did think we'll kind of switch it up a little bit, on the Renew You podcast. I feel like it was growing a little stale. And I don't like doing stuff for staleness sake, You know what I'm saying? When it gets stale, throw it in the trash.
Or you could be like our kids, and when it gets stale, you just keep eating it.
Sure. There's Rich Wilkerson Jr. tells a story about his college professor that had a bunch of phrases, and one of the phrases was, "If the horse is dead, dismount."
That's funny.
So yeah, I just felt like it was going a little stale. It felt like we were just kind of regurgitating information, and so I thought it'd be fun to, really honestly, got this kind of idea from Peter and Laura Tolgs.
I think if you try to say somebody's last name with their accent, that might be
Togsy.
offensive.
I had dinner with Peter Toggs one night in Oklahoma City.
I guarantee he doesn't remember that.
He doesn't remember that, but I do. He was actually really, really nice and really, really cool. But they're doing a podcast right now called Parable Essentials, and they're just kind of talking through different elements of the church and culture and things like that. And maybe we won't stay like this forever, but I felt like it was a perfect kind of diving board into it because we're doing City on a Hill, a people called life, and we're talking about church and everything like that. And so I thought it'd be fun just to kind of talk about what are some things we sense in the church right now, what are some things that we see going on in the church right now, and et cetera, et cetera. So what about you, babe? What do you see when you look out over the horizon? You look past the seagulls and the kids playing in the sand. What do you see?
Well, I think I kind of see almost two different things happening simultaneously. I see that the Lord is speaking a lot of vision, and the Lord is really speaking a lot of like expectancy, like to stir up our faith and to maybe go further than we've ever gone before, maybe go deeper than we've ever gone before, reach more people than we've ever been able to reach before. And I think so that there's like one element of our church culture right now where there exists just this excitement and this passion and this tenacity to be all in and to get ready for whatever it is the Lord's doing. But I also think I sense that maybe just because the church has grown pretty quickly over the past few years, that maybe there's a whole, how do I say this? Like, not demographic, but maybe like a whole portion of our church who is hearing that there's expectancy and hearing that the Lord's asking us to stir up our faith, but have maybe like counted themselves out of that. Like, oh, it's so cool that Life Church is wanting to like reach more young people, or it's so cool that Life Church is doing these things called Nights of Renewal, or it's so cool that Life Church is putting on like the biggest ever summer encounter this summer. But they're kind of like good with just like cheering that on and not participating in that. Like an example of that maybe would be, like I always talk about all growing up, it was wild to me that our church had adults that would take their vacation time from work and use it to invest Monday through Friday as VBS volunteers. Like that has been like the narrative of our church's heart for the next generation. That like it is crazy that these men and women care so much about these kids who are going to come in and give their lives to Jesus this week, that they are burning through their PTO to come and serve. And then I think because that's been our narrative, because that's what we're used to, we then are sometimes like surprised when, like, for example, this year, Stephanie's like, we got a ton of teenagers ready to help for VBS, not a lot of adult participation. And I don't know if it's because we so celebrate that there are people who are just like all in, that other people are maybe more comfortable saying like, oh, they got it. But it is wild, because I do think like, whereas before the vast majority of our church was like, oh, there's an opportunity to serve, I'm there. There's an opportunity to give, I'm giving. There's an opportunity to do this, like, just tell me what to do and like, I'll be there. Things like disaster relief and all these things. It was like hundreds of people are just showing up pumped to like help. And I think now that group that before was like the overwhelming majority is maybe being marginalized a little bit, and that there are more people than ever who are like, that's awesome what you guys are doing, and aren't as devoted to being a part of it. And I hope that doesn't sound bad or mean, but that's just like my perception, I think.
You're so mean. I'm joking. Yeah, no, I definitely can see that. I think I think two things happening kind of simultaneously. One, I think that I have a ton of faith for what God is doing. I've never felt like I feel like I've always been a like believe the best kind of person. I feel like I've always been an optimistic type of person, but I really have like lately just felt such a faith for different things, just believing that God is going to do incredible things. And I feel like internally, personally, I've just had a real spirit of faith kind of expanding and growing. And so that's been cool. I think, even down to things like I've had random faith that maybe one person will just come in and completely fund like the young adult building expansion. Like had random faith for that lately.
So that's you.
Yeah. I've just had random faith that like maybe somebody would come in and write $150,000 check. Like it can happen. Like it's happened other places. Why could it not happen here?
Yeah.
And so I've had random moments of faith like that where it's just like, yeah, why not? For sure. I feel like also kind of what you're saying is that there's some dynamics where I just sense that it could be really easy to kind of hide out at our church. Like the more it grows, the more that more people come, it can just be easy to kind of not be known and not be super, super involved. And I want to fight back against that element for sure. I want people to be known no matter how big we get. I want people to be known. I want people, I love when people come up after church and like, we've never talked, but this is my name and this is my story, or thank you for this, or can we talk about this? I love that just because it gives you a chance to like know somebody.
Yeah.
And so I think that element of just being able to kind of hide out, I would love for nobody to hide out at our church and for everybody to be integrated and involved and plugged in. I think the young adult building is another thing that you think about of, man, if we could just somehow, your dad jokes like every pastor wishes they could just have like one Sunday where they got every single person a tithe so they could just show everybody like, look at what we can do. And I do feel that way sometimes of like we have our young adults stuffed into a building right now, and I would love to just be able to say, let's build it now. And we probably could do that if we had like 100% involvement on a Sunday morning. So things like that. But I do think one of the things that I sense for sure is Sunday felt like the most energetic expression of of church that we've had in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed that.
Too, one thing I was thinking about while you were talking is I remember children's pastoring at another church before I came here. And I remember one day, we had put out a call for people to come and serve. And an older person in the church looked at me and they're like, I'm really sorry to hear you need help. I would love to, but I've already paid my time in the children's department. I did it for this many years. And I just remember, first of all, thinking like, I wish we wouldn't have shared that with me. Like, that was sad. But it really was like eye-opening for me to say, like, we can have that mentality sometimes of like, oh, I already work really hard 5 days a week. So I've paid my output quota for the week. And so like, I'm not going to serve in a church. Or like, I am a pretty generous person, so I'm not going to tithe. And I just remember when that person said that to me, I remember thinking like, I can't find an example in the New Testament where Jesus or Paul or one of the apostles said, I've done a lot up to this point, so I think we're just going to call it good. Like every single person in the New Testament who's an example for us of a believer in faith, they finished well. Like most of them were murdered for their faith. Like most of them went to the grave doing what they were called to do. But there was no such thing as like this idea of like a retirement from the hard stuff. And I'm not saying that's everybody's mentality is not serving. Like I understand that there's dynamics, especially at a place like here where we have like pretty extra high standards for serving. Like I totally get that. But also I do think a lot of times it can be this mindset of like, well, I just came out of a hard season and I did a lot. So, and that mindset really says that like the Lord doesn't have enough to sustain me to do what he's calling me to do. Like, oh, to say I'm old now and I'm tired and I've already served with kids, it's saying like that I don't believe that God is a God who can make the end of something even more glorious than the beginning. And I just think like the Lord will sustain us for as much as we have faith for.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's an interesting dynamic of, like right now culture is very much like, I don't know how many Instagram reels I see a week that are, we were pastors and we stopped going to church and this is what we learned. Like, it's like all this, like there's this one guy that always comes up and his whole thing is like, our family changed when we stopped going to church. And like, there's still Christians and stuff, but like their whole point is you don't need to go to church and all that stuff. You should be focusing just on your home and your family. And obviously, I'm the pastor, so I get it. It's whatever. There's always going to be somebody that's like, well, you're the pastor, that's what you said. But I mean, even if we weren't, there's something so incredible about getting to build the local church because that local church outlives you in a place.
Yeah.
And it just is so many, I remember do you remember what the second theme for not Nights of Renewal, Ignite Tulsa was?
No, Humanity's Home was here. Hold on. Give me a hint. I want a hint. Can I have a hint?
No.
Unity.
Nope, that was the first one.
I don't remember.
Seeds of Revival.
Sounds about right. I don't remember.
But the concept was...
I don't remember.
And I was not very good at communicating then, for one. I'm not great now, but I've gotten better. But the concept was I was reading Daniel one day and I realized that this kingdom had stolen these Israelite boys and they had taken them and they wanted the most handsome ones, the most well put together ones to be seeds to change the culture of everybody else they're bringing in to say, look at the most influential, look at the best, look at the brightest. They're going this way. All of you should go this way as well. And there was this little remnant that chose, instead of being seeds for a different kingdom, they chose to be seeds of revival, and they chose to stand up, and they chose to not bow, and they chose. And when I think about that, I've been thinking about that concept a lot lately with just like building the church. And it's like the amount of seeds of revival that are being planted that you have no clue, that you can't see, that just compound when you're part of a local church is just incredible. And so, yeah, I think that's one of the things. I just have this overwhelming sense right now of, man, I just wish I want to build the church with everybody all together, like all at the same time. Like there's so much that we could all do. And there's so much, if it was just me and you, or if it was just the staff, or if it was just even the people that are serving right now, there's so much we couldn't do because, I mean, think about me. I'm not gifted in a lot of areas. So it's like, if it's just me, we've got a lot of areas that we can't serve people in. But if it's all of us together collectively, there's just so much we can do. And I just think, I just go back to the beginning of the series, like the God of again. Like, what if he did it again?
Yeah.
And if he took it from 4 women to 1,400 people in 40 years, what could he do in the next 40?
Yeah.
Like, could it go from 1,400 to 4,000 or 5,000? And I know when I say that number, I know we live in Angleton. I know people are like, it's already big enough. You know, I was talking to a couple the other day, and they were like, I don't think we could go to a church much bigger than ours. And I'm thinking like, hopefully the temperature, hopefully it's like when you're the frog in water, you don't even notice the temperature rose. Hopefully that's because I'm like, what if it, and it's not for the sake of a big room, you know, it's really funny. And I was contemplating this last night, actually. I can genuinely, with a clean heart before the Lord, say, I mean, you would know this because you're the only one that sees the numbers. Like, I have no clue what the numbers are.
It's because you don't open my emails.
Right. But I don't look at the attendance numbers. I know our money numbers, but I don't know who gives what. I don't look at that.
I don't look at that either.
So like for me, it's never, I literally never walk into a Sunday and go, man, there wasn't very many people there, or man, we need more people here. I literally can honestly, with a clean, when I was at Life High, especially on Life High, there were a lot of days I thought about that. Honestly, right now, I never think about that.
Yeah.
But what I do think about is I think about the reality of when I go to Kroger, or when I go to the gym, or when I go to Starbucks, or when I go to the Little League complex. I think about the hundreds, when I go to the high school, think about the hundreds and thousands of people that are living outside of the good news of Jesus. And for that sake, I would love to see there be 5,000 people here on a Sunday.
I agree.
It would honestly change my life very little, I feel like, when it comes to preaching and being like, it has nothing to do with that. It just had, what kind of impact could that have on a community like Angleton? And we are primed and in position to be able to do that. Like, I think what the Spirit of God is speaking, what he's stirring up, the people that we have, what he's done the last 40 years, where we're at right now, the campus that we have, the growth happening around us. Like, we are primed and positioned for the only way I said this the first sermon of the series, the only way I think it doesn't happen is if we abandon Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, if we just do again what we did the last 40, I just think we're primed and positioned, and it's going to happen.
And it's like in the book of Acts when Peter goes out filled with the Holy Spirit and he preaches in the streets, and it says 3,000 people like joined the church that day, like joined the believers that day. That did nothing for Peter. Like, Peter wasn't like, I'm cool now, or like, I can finally give up my like plan B of fishing. Like, Peter was already sold out to the gospel before 3,000 people responded. What 3,000 people responding to Jesus did that day was it changed the dynamic of Jerusalem. Like, it changed. It led to, and all the believers were together and shared everything in common. And I think like that makes the argument, I think of like, well, of course you're the pastor. Like, that kind of like diminishes the argument. Because first of all, we don't live in a church culture. Like, we don't pastor the kind of church where how we're doing personally ebbs and flows with the people. Like, we're not like insurance sales people who are making like commissions or something. Like, we came here and we said we're going to serve, and we're going to serve. And our life stays pretty consistent. And so I think like that just shows like, you know, it does make it silly because and maybe that's not how every church is. So maybe that's where this mindset of like, of course you're the pastor, you have something to gain comes from, because I could see how maybe in some like places with larger churches, I could see how, you know, maybe somebody just led a little bit differently and did benefit a little bit more. But it really goes back to that picture for me of like, I don't care about people being like Grant and Alexis pastor big church. I care about like, how exciting would it have been to be in Jerusalem when there were 3,000 people responding to the gospel? Like, I just want to be in a room where 3,000 people are hearing the message of Jesus and saying like, let's do this together. Like, I'm living for like that moment of like, all the lights are finally coming on. Yeah. Like, all these people are finally lighting up. Like, that's if I have anything, I guess, to gain from it, that's selfish, I guess it's the selfishness of just like wanting to get to see it when it happens, like wanting to get to watch like the scales falling off people's eyes and the confusion dying away and the chaos finally being turned into peace. Like, I guess my selfish gain is like, I want to get to hear all the stories.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I even think that has been one of my thoughts lately. Like, I'm just glad to be in the room, you know? I felt that way a little bit on Sunday, you know? Just like jumping up and down and having fun and just grateful to be in the room. I felt that way at Foursquare Connection this year. Not speaking, not doing anything, just grateful to be in the room. I felt that way at the Empower thing I was just at, just grateful to be in the room. Like, I do think that's been one of my phrases lately that I keep thinking about. Like, I'm just grateful to get to be in the room. And one of the things that has just really been on my heart lately, I've randomly started pulling up old Hillsong stuff and listening to it. And, you know, obviously Hillsong's had Hillsong's things, for sure. But Brian Houston used to have this phrase, and it's literally been just the phrase that has been in my mind so much the last couple weeks during service, but especially this week during service. And he used to always say, if you show up to church, anything could happen, and it probably will. And it was just like, that is one thing that Hillsong did great, is like they brought such a sense of expectancy, such a sense of excitement, such a sense of, I'm glad I get to be in the room, and like such a sense of just faith and just the young people showing up in the room. You know, I watched these old like 2000s night services at Hillsong, and you just see the entire front, just hundreds of teenagers just completely coming in with excitement and expectancy and just continually, just leading the entire atmosphere. And I love that phrase. Like, you should come to church because anything can happen, and it probably will. Yeah. And that's kind of what's really on my heart more than anything right now, is just like, just keep showing up to church because anything can happen, and it probably will.
And I think that's what makes the night of renewal so not is that what it's called?
Nights of renewal?
Yeah. Okay. I literally feel like I had a stroke right there for a second. I was like, where are we? I think that's what makes it so good. Is like, nobody's coming to Nights of Renewal because it's a Sunday and that's what they've done their whole lives, and so they just have to like get up and go. Like, people are coming to Nights of Renewal because they're expecting it to be something. Like, everyone I think has their own preconceived notion of like what this is going to be. And I think it's even just having some kind of anticipation that allows people to receive what it is that they're looking for. And we don't always show up on a Sunday morning at 8:30 with that same anticipation because it's a rhythm or because it's a routine or because it's a habit. And I think the good question to ask is like, how do I show up every day like this is something brand new and the possibilities are endless, versus showing up every day and being like, I already know what's going to happen. Like, and even like people say it jokingly, but they're like, I already know what's going to happen on a Sunday. You're going to do 2 fast songs, and then someone's going to come up, and then you're going to do 2 slow songs, and then we're going to hear a message. Okay, but what if the second fast song, the Holy Spirit shows up and it just like wrecks your whole life? Like, the having that thing of like, well, I already know, Like, okay, whatever, make the observation, but God can work in a framework. Like, you're trying to tell me that God's so limited by us that because we did 2 fast songs and 2 slow songs, like he can't do something? Like, that's just like a wildly disproportionate view of God, to think that he couldn't be like, this Sunday seems good, and just
he can only work when you start saying, when I think about Jesus, how he set me free.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
God
doesn't need us. Like, we should be open to deviating if the Spirit leads, but God doesn't need us to deviate to do something.
Yeah. And I mean, most weeks we keep pretty consistent. This Sunday, that did feel like one of those moments where, man, the Spirit was just really leading us into a place of joy. But yeah, no, I agree with you. And it's that tension, right? It's that tension of anything that leads to maturation is going to have a rhythm to it and a consistency to it. And anything that leads to maturation is going to get over the fact that it always has to be exciting and it always has to be new. That's maturity.
Yeah.
So there's that side of it. And we want to be a mature people. But what's the sake, it's like, what's the sake of being mature if you don't have the joy of the Lord?
Yeah.
What's the sake of being mature if you lose the gratitude for the Lord? What's the sake of being mature if you lose the love for the Lord, which is excitement, which is zeal, so it's like, it's that tension. Like, yes, I want us to be mature. I don't want to turn into the church where it feels like every Sunday there has to be some massive sermon illustration and there has to be confetti and there has to be pyrotechnics I don't want to be the church where it feels like every Sunday there has to be a special announcement. I don't want to be the church that's hype for hype's sake. But I do think, I love what Rich Wilkerson said the last time we were at VU Conference, when he talked about how this isn't hype, this is hope. And hope does have an expectancy to it. Mm-hmm. Hope does have an anticipation to it. And I do want to be a church that, we don't have to have hype every Sunday, but I do want to be a church that is filled with hope every Sunday, which leads us to a perfect place to close today, right where we finish this Sunday off. Now may the God of all hope fill you with joy and peace to overflowing as you trust in him. And I forget the last part of that verse, but something, it says joy and strength, or joy and peace again, I think. But that you're overflowing in hope as you trust in him. And I do think we should desire to overflow in hope. And I hope that when people come into our church, right now they already sense a friendly church. Mm-hmm. But I pray that they sense a friendly church that has audacious faith and is overflowing with hope and anticipation and excitement about everything God could do.
Friendly and faith-filled. Make a t-shirt. Just kidding. Let's not make t-shirts for a minute.
Yeah. We do have some extra ones tonight for people that didn't get one that will be out.
By the time this posts, will it already be tomorrow?
Yeah, probably.
Sorry. You missed your chance.
But we love you guys. Just keep showing up. VBS is right around the corner. Summer Encounter is right around the corner. And then Holy Homes is right around the corner.
Who knows what God's going to do?
Just keep showing up, because God can do anything, and he probably will.